that Tig Notaro opening in her when
good.
she was like, I have cancer. How are you? How's everyone doing? I have cancer. I thought the cheerfulness of that just
spectacular
slayed me when I think about it.
Yeah. She's so wonderful, Tig. I love her.
I'm thinking about all the responses to terrible things that I did not love.
Yeah.
I wonder if we could things to say, things not to say for a bit.
Okay.
Things to say, I really like it when someone says some version of like, I'm so sorry that happened to you.
Yeah.
But like the to you kind of gets me very emotional because it's not like I'm some generic person in the world.
Yeah. I mean, and questions I love.
Yeah.
If my son died at the age of 2 years and 9 months and you learn that, you are, I promise, wondering why, wondering how, wondering the circumstances. What was his name? You know? I'm happy to answer those questions, you know? And to people who are like, well, I didn't want to bring it up. You're not bringing it up. You think I'm not thinking about my son who died, whose dead body I held? You think I'm not you think he's not here with me right now? You think because he's dead? I have 4 sons. One of them's dead, but he's still receiving a quarter-ish of my parenting energy. I mean, I'm sure the percentages change between kids every day. But
that's a lovely image.
He's my son.
Yeah.
I'm his dad. That'll never change.
Yeah.
Where is he? I don't know. Yeah. That I don't know. Which is good. I wouldn't want to know, you know. I won't wonder for when we die, you know. The idea like, oh yeah, no, I know what's going to happen. Come on.
I could think you probably like bossy people who just don't ask random crap and show up with lovely things. I hated it when people said, is there anything I can do?
Oh, yeah,
Or like, well, I mean, you could come up with something to do and then show up and then do it.
You could not give me a job by asking me that question.
To figure out how to fit you into my now disappeared life.
Yeah, you just bring a mediocre / not even good casserole and you put it in my fridge. You know what I mean? You come over, you say, you're going to be here with my children for a couple hours. Will you go for a run or go walk in the park or whatever? Go find a weird corner in the park and lie down, face down, and cry into the soil and have snails drink your tears. You know, that's much better. Also, kids, again, like I remember a nice parent with their kid, a good friend of mine, was sitting there and their daughter asked about my son and Henry, and who's Henry? And I said, who's my son? And he died. And she just went, what? He died? And I was like, yeah. And she said, and he died and he's dead? And I was like, yeah. How? Why? You know? And being like, he had a brain tumor, which is like cancer in your brain. And like, that's so much better. Yeah. Because every adult is that curious, you know? And so fucking ask. So I like those, you know, or people who were like, are you, or like, Jesus Christ, I can't even fucking imagine, you know what I mean? Yeah. Profanity. That's its best use.
It is its
that's
best
where it's
use.
Best. I mean,
I feel a deep calm. I had this weird response to, I was starting cancer and I was starting Lent. Yeah. And that was my like 40 days of 40 days of F-bombs. I work in a very religious context. And I was like, this is the new me. But the new me. Yeah. The new me felt very, it was, I mean, they have those studies of like, if you put your hand in freezing cold water and you're allowed a million expletives, the people who are swearing the whole time can keep their hands submerged for longer. Hey, and I thought, that feels right. Yeah. And the worst things that people say.
Just like the question was, how are things? Things are very bad. We've recently learned that Henry's cancer has come back, and he's going to die. Oh yeah, my grandfather had a brain tumor. He got better, but
they always do so well at the end.
Yeah, yeah, and so that's bad.
Rob, I hate that for you so much.
Another one, somebody said, "How are you doing? Not great. You know, first Christmas without Henry's coming up, and I would prefer to just go into a medically induced coma just for 6 weeks, and skip it." And but then our new son had been born because my wife, I mean, this is not even one podcast. This is a series. My wife was pregnant when Henry died, right? I mean, if you can even imagine that. And so we had a new son who arrived before Christmas. And this person said, yeah, but first Christmas with the new guy, like as if like deflecting the fact. And for me, the thing is, it's so weird because like the arrival of our new son in no way addressed Henry's absence. By the same token, Henry's death did not lessen our joy at this beautiful new fella who'd entered the scene. So it was almost like when you see like an estuary where like fresh water and salt water and like one is blurry and one is clear. You're like, they aren't intermingling. You know what I mean? Like they're right next to each other and you might feel them at the same time, but they don't. Like the arrival of number 4 did not lessen the nightmare horror of losing Henry, nor did Henry dying make this little nugget any less delicious. And I was very worried. I thought, well, I don't love anymore because it's all, my heart is destroyed. So I'll go through the motions with him. Like I'll tell him I love him. I'll dress him and feed him, but his experience is gonna suck, and then the second he came out, I was like, give it, just wanted like rubbing him all over my face and head and licking and biting his ears. I still bite the amount of time that my kids' ears spend in my mouth.
Oh, I know. Yeah. It's insane. Yeah. We had to make rules. Like we signed contracts, my son and I, about like, we had to make, there's so many biting rules. It's the only sort of like constitution of that relationship is like, number 1.
Yeah.
Under these conditions, I will eat you up.
Yeah.
When you think about because Henry's pain, I imagine, was always on your mind, but then his absurd, gorgeous joy and personality. It feels like you've got a lot of strong feelings about joy and puppies and what makes life really beautiful and good in the middle of suffering.
Yeah, well, you can happen and coexist and stuff, So we were having a lot of fun often when Henry was in the hospital, because he, there were a lot of terrible, there are many terrible things, too many to list, when you have a tumor next to your brainstem and cranial nerves. It messes up a lot of stuff. But like frontal lobe, totally undisturbed. So like just, minutia and finer things and tastes, and foibles and stuff were razor sharp in him. So he was very fun. He was very funny. He was very curious. He was very mischievous.
He was like stealing things all the time.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, nurses would be like, where is it? And Henry would be hiding under his pillow, and he, he would come out and climb up and sit on the desk of like the ward nurse head and help them answer calls and stuff. I mean, he was ridiculous. And also he was sort of a combination of like third boy in a very short space of time. I mean, his oldest brother was 4 when he was born, and then there was one more in the middle. So we've got 3 boys under the age of 5. So since he showed up third, he, kind of wisely was like, okay, I'll be very magnetic and sweet and smiley and lovely, not like screaming for attention, but just like being such that you couldn't ignore him, So he like a little cutie pie conniver drew you towards him. And then after they found the tumor and he had a surgery, then he had to be like, Evander Holyfield of just ferocious aspiration and drive to learn and relearn things. So he was just like, he was like in the mines of unbelievable hard work, learning to use his body under these new circumstances. Yeah. So he was like the sweetest and most driven. He really made a lot of other kids look like shit. Yeah.
Yeah, those garbage kids. You gotta just feel sorry for them.
Yeah. Not my other kids, though, because they were so amazing with them. I mean, the things that they learned, our other little gentlemen, you know, I mean, they could set up a feed, you know, like through the stomach tube.
Yeah.
And they could do, you know, basic tracheostomy maintenance and care. And always in his hospital beds and playing, and like the number of pictures we have of our 3 kids in one hospital bed having a very good time is just so. Yeah, they were amazing and are amazing.
Because I often wonder, I mean, the things you can't ever know, but like as a parent, you always wonder, like, who's this gonna make you?
Yeah, my 10-year-old is. I sometimes call our 10-year-old, and he's the second one, the mayor of the family, because he's just a smiley go-getter, you know, and likes to be in charge, and is loud, and he makes friends easily and all that, and it sometimes can be really annoying and awful, and you know, physically attack both his older and younger brother and things like that. You know, he's a human being, right?
Yeah.
Not too long ago, he was playing football. That's what they call baseball here. And
you should just keep adding new sports. That's what they call ping pong. And that's what they call cricket.
And the grandmother of another kid that he was playing football with came up to me and said, "Hey, I just want to let you know, he's being so kind to my grandson Timothy when he plays football, and not all the other kids are. And you know, he just moved to town, and so." What your son Diego has been doing, and by the way, I love that name Diego, which is real, is just being really encouraging to him, you know, and he so appreciates that. And he's come home and told me that. And I'm like, okay, so I immediately start crying to this woman I don't know. Yeah. And I'm like, thank you. You know, and then I'm like furiously texting my wife, being like, "You're never gonna believe what I just heard. Diego is so encouraging. He's a good boy, my good boy to help the other boy," and like freaking out. And then Diego came over, and I didn't know he'd come up like behind me and saw me sending the text, and I was like, "You weren't supposed to know that. Like, I was gonna use that later as ammunition when you made me upset. I was gonna look at it, and then, you know, just all the weird intra-family dynamics. You know, I was like, but now you know, I'm so proud of you." Like, it's the craziest thing.
Where we're all just looking for signs.
But you know what I mean? Like, he was doing a type of kindness that, like, you don't have to do as a 10-year-old boy, you know. And I was just so happy to hear that. And so so I don't know, would he have done that otherwise? Who knows? But I do know that he, when he was 4, you know, knew how to feed his brother with a machine, you know, through a tube in his stomach, and set up all the weird controls for it so it parcels it out properly through the night and stuff. And
it's always the hope, right? Is not just for change. We're all going to change regardless, but for some kind of and this is like this is one of my favorite theological terms, which I actually find useful, which is just like, there's nothing redemptive about suffering, period. But there is, I think, a hope of like sanctification. It's like when you love, and you love, and then you do all the hard work of loving. That just the act of loving makes you into a person.
Yeah. If the things happen that are hard and you like metabolize them and try not to hate them, then, and you acknowledge, that really happened. You know, it hurt terribly. It hurts right now thinking about it, but it did happen. I did acquire some hard-won skills that I would give away in a second
immediately,
but I can't, so I might as well use them, you know. Like, that's why I wrote the book, because look, my book is no better and no worse than any other entry in the bereaved parent canon. It's true, I can tell you that much, and so there's its value. I'm telling you how one bereaved guy felt, and then that book can help another bereaved parent, you know, just like I was helped. In a way, just like I was helped by other bereaved parents that helped me along the way. And I kind of hoped for the book to be just like a bereaved parent meeting that you could carry around with you, you know? Because look, I live in the middle of London. I can walk to a good bereaved parents meeting. What if you can't? Yeah. And a lot of people can't. Yeah. Most people probably can't, you know? Yeah. And so, so I wanted to write a book that was as good as any other book at helping those people who might not be able to go. Yeah. You know?
That is, in religious words, we would be like, that is a testimony. And I'm so grateful to have met you. Thanks so much, Rob. This was my God, such a treat.